Cafe. Sport, accessibility, inclusion for disabled people.
Close-up of a supporter in a red shirt smiling and celebrating. A blue background appears and the text reads Sport.
Sport, 运动.
Deporte. Sport.
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 A selection of images of supporters at various football grounds across Europe. Footage of supporters celebrating. A side-on image of a supporter smiling and raising his right arm. A green background appears and the text reads Accessibility.
Accessibility.
Two people wearing headsets and commentating in a stadium. Text appears Accessibility.
Accessibilitate.
Footage of people accessing a stadium.
Toegankelijkheid. Accessibility.
Text appears Accessibility, with a series of photos of supporters in different locations.
Accessibilità.
A fan in a wheelchair going towards an accessible entrance. A group of children in blue Man City shirts. An orange background appears and the text reads Inclusion. A supporter celebrates.
Inclusione. Incluse.
Kapsama.
Inclusione.
A sign language interpreter looking up at supporters in a stadium. Text appears Inclusion. Footage of fans smiling, singing and hugging.
Inclusion.
A supporter sitting with a guide dog. A fan following a game with a monocular. A supporter with a headset. A supporter on a mobility scooter and two fans sitting in a stadium. An image of a group of supporters. A yellow background appears and the text reads For disabled people.
Voor mensen met een handicap.
Pour les personnes en situation de handicap.
Para pessoas com deficiência.
A supporter smiles and celebrates. A series of photos of supporters from across Europe.
Para personas con discapacidad.
Fans smiling and leaving a stadium.
Cafe. Sport, accessibility, inclusion for disabled people.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. I'm Mark Flewitt, Chair of the Cafe Board of Trustees. I'm a white man wearing glasses with fair, or maybe grey, hair, and I use he and his. And I'm accompanied by Joanna Deagle, Cafe's Managing Director. It is our great pleasure to welcome you to the 4th International Cafe Conference.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, I'm Jo. I'm a white, youngish woman with brown hair and glasses. My pronouns are she and he, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the conference. The Cafe Conference takes place every 3 years, and usually we'd be meeting at a stadium, spending several days together. And whilst we would have loved to do that again, we wanted to ensure everyone could be part of this conference, so we've moved online. We also made the conscious decision not to postpone the conference. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we all know that this pandemic is having a disproportionate impact on disabled people, so the message of total access is even more critical. Sports are also in a time of big changes. We're seeing new competition formats, the growth in the women's game, digitalization, innovation, and it's really key that disabled people are part of those changes and contribute to them. So our aim over the next 2 days is to raise awareness, put the spotlight on disability inclusion and access, and to challenge and encourage you, our stakeholders, to work together to ensure disabled people can take part in their right and take their places in sport. We're happy to welcome around 300 delegates with us today from over 50 countries, including Japan, India, Brazil, Sierra Leone, the US, Hong Kong, Argentina, and of course from across the UEFA region.
Thanks, Jo. With the Cafe Conference online this time, we have the opportunity to explore access and inclusion both within and outside European football. We're excited to hear from speakers from across the globe. We will also take a look at what's happening in other sports, thanks to speakers from World Rugby, the International Paralympic Committee, and the National Basketball Association. Finally, as part of our commitment to seeing more disabled people across all aspects of the game, we've partnered with the Football for All Leadership Programme and are pleased to have a number of their participants and alumni speaking and moderating sessions over the next 2 days. To make the most of the event, you will have received lots of helpful tips in the joining instructions. We've made every effort to make the conference accessible to everyone. So we have English captions embedded into the main conference stream sessions and group discussions. In the chat, you should find a URL for captions in French, German, Spanish, Polish, and Russian. International Sign Language is also embedded into the main conference stream and group discussions. We're using Interprefy to offer audio language translation in French, German, Spanish, Russian, and Polish during the conference. So please check your joining instructions so you can activate this if needed. There are a couple of sessions during which a speaker will be contributing in Spanish, so English interpretation will also be available. Finally, you may have already noticed that we've added audio description to our video during the conference. This is automatic, so you don't need to do anything to hear this.
So before we jump into today's agenda, we wanted to say some really big thank yous. Firstly, thanks to FIFA and UEFA, who will both be speaking today and tomorrow in some of the sessions. We're pleased to see that access and inclusion remains a key topic for both of you, and that your dedication and commitment to access and inclusion for disabled people is only increasing. Thanks to the Cafe Board of Directors, all of whom are with us today, and whose support in the past year has been particularly significant. Thank you to the Cafe team, you're amazing. You've shaped this conference, and I'm really excited to see all your hard work pay off over the next 2 days. Thank you to our friends at FAIR, with whom we work with very closely and who will also contribute to this conference. Thanks to Attendable and Hostility, who helped us organise this conference online and who have held our hands as we enter the virtual world. We chose these two organisations due to their commitment to accessible online events. Thanks to the AV team, language interpreters, sign language interpreters, and captioners. Thanks to Alan March's team for providing the audio description over some of the visual elements of this conference. Thanks to Gilby Films, who created this brilliant video that we just saw, and to all of those who contributed to it. Thanks to all our speakers and panelists for contributing your expertise and sharing your experiences with us. And finally, a big, big thank you to you, the audience. Please send us your questions, use the networking opportunities. You'll see there's a link to a Teams chat where you can share your contact details and mention what you want to engage with people on. And make some noise on social media using the hashtag Total Access. The more you engage with the conference, the more points you earn. So there's a leaderboard on the platform as well that you'll see, and the winner will get a prize.
Thanks, Joe. As Joe mentioned, there will be lots of opportunities to network during the conference. And please do also use the chat to say hello and to share your contact details if you would like to connect with the audience or the speakers on certain topics. We will also run some polls throughout the conference, so make sure you're ready to contribute using the links for Slido in your joining instructions. In today's agenda, we will hear what it's like to be a disabled away fan. We will catch up with UEFA, FIFA and World Rugby as we look at past and future mega sports events. We'll speak to the NBA to understand how access and inclusion is progressing in other sports. We will take a look at accessibility in other sports, including basketball and cycling. We'll have a session on access and inclusion for non-visibly disabled fans, building on the research that we did last year. And with the current digital transformation of sport, we'll take a look at the latest technology and innovation for disabled people. Finally, we'll close today with the Cafe Awards ceremony to celebrate the champions in access and inclusion. And after all that, if anyone wants to continue the good times, we'll open several chat rooms for you to discuss some of tonight's UEFA men's and women's club competition matches. So you can celebrate or suffer with your teams.
So to begin the conference, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome FIFA's Chief of Social Responsibility and Education Officer, Cafe founder, and dear friend, Joyce Cook. Joyce will deliver the keynote speech, and then we'll go straight into the first session on what it's like to be an away disabled fan. And in that session, look out for some polls to contribute to. Joyce founded Cafe in 2009. And thanks to her work, access and inclusion for disabled people became a key topic in international football. Since she moved to FIFA in 2016, firstly as Chief Member Associations Officer, and now as Chief of Social Responsibility and Education Officer, she's continued to put disabled people's rights on the agenda. Joyce is someone who's committed to seeing change. And in her time at Cafe, she ensured accessibility standards were integrated into both FIFA and UEFA's tournaments and finals. She empowered disabled fans to form user-led associations and lead the way locally. She challenged architects to remove barriers and change their assumptions that disabled people didn't want to attend live games. Thanks to her work on UEFA club licensing, we now see over 400 disability access officers across Europe, supporting their clubs and national associations to make year-on-year improvements. Now, these are just a few of the achievements we saw under Joyce, and I can say with confidence that without her, football would be in a worse position. Today, she'll share her thoughts on where we are in the journey of access and inclusion and what we still need to do. So with that, I thank you, Joyce, for giving up your time to join us today, and I hand over to you for the keynote speech.